For years, we've had RPGs, action games, slashers that use melee combat as its main gameplay. But it wasn't until Demon's Souls and Dark Souls until we learned how to take that concept in a totally new direction. These games have created a market for games that feel challenging, but purely on skill, not cheap difficulty, dubbed Souls-like games. So here's 10 Souls-like titles that should get any Souls fan excited. Death's Gambit isn't out yet, so it's difficult to say for certain how Souls-like it will be. However, its Dark Souls inspirations are clear. Death's Gambit is a 2D side-scrolling action RPG that requires you to strategically plan your attacks and learn your enemy's attack patterns. When you die, you lose one of your feathers, a healing item you have in limited supply. You can reclaim your lost feather by returning to the spot where you died. It has many unique twists on the formula and places you on a medieval-era alien planet as an agent of death, searching for the planet's source of immortality. Death's Gambit is due out for the PC and PS4 sometime in 2017, and should be a viable choice for fans in search of a new Souls-like game. This indie action game for the PC, Mac, PS4, Vita and Android already evokes thoughts of Souls games through its very name, but Titan Souls has one immediate twist. It exclusively features boss fights. Inspired by Shadow of the Colossus as well as Dark Souls, Titan Souls places you in a top-down world inhabited by massive, dangerous titans. You have one arrow and you die in one hit. Likewise, the titans die in a single hit, but each must be defeated in a specific way. Learning the titans' attacks, retrieving your fired arrow, and figuring out the strategy to defeat each one leads to a challenge game where you will die a lot. With simple controls and high difficulty, Titan Souls is the game to look at if you want your Souls-like experience focused on strategic boss battles. How about some roguelike Souls? Necropolis combines Souls-style action combat with procedurally generated dungeons and permadeath, which makes for a deadly combination. It's very easy to die. You'll want to grab useful loot from fallen enemies and treasure chests, and since it's randomized, everything will be different the next time you play it. Even item effects change between games. Despite its punishing difficulty, Necropolis is unusually light-hearted for games like this, with humour in its narrative and item descriptions. Necropolis is available now for PC and Mac, with PS4 and Xbox One versions due out this summer. Due to its roguelike elements, it is a shorter game with a focus on replayability, which may disappoint players who dislike repetition. However, for players interested in both Souls and roguelike gameplay, Necropolis brings the two together to create a challenging package. Setting aside roguelike Souls, is anyone up for some isometric Souls? Aitor is an isometric action RPG based on Norse mythology, with gameplay inspired by Dark Souls and Diablo. You play as a shield maiden on a quest to save the great tree Yggdrasil, and deadly enemies stand in your way. Basic combat will be familiar to anyone who has played the Souls games. You use melee attacks, you can block or dodge attacks, and you can parry with accurate timing. Actions decrease your stamina meter, and you'll restore your health with potions refilled at the scattered campfires. However, it has its own features as well. Instead of experience, you earn favour, which can be spent for permanent upgrades or more powerful, though temporary, boosts. It also has a Diablo-esque loot system, adding a new twist to the gameplay. Like Death's Gambit, Aitor is not out yet. It will be out for PC, Mac, Linux, and PS4 at an unspecified date, and looks excellent for fans of Souls games, especially if you enjoy Norse mythology. Lords of the Fallen, available for the PC, PS4 and Xbox One, really wants to be Dark Souls, to the point where One of the most common criticisms against it is that it struggles to find its own identity. It is an action RPG with slow, methodical combat against difficult enemies. When you defeat enemies, you earn experience, and unspent experience is lost when you die. You must return to that spot without dying and within a certain amount of time in order to claim your lost experience. Experience is also determined by a multiplier that increases the longer you avoid using a checkpoint or spending experience, adding an additional risk versus reward aspect. The world is smaller than that of the Souls games, with new areas unlocked as you progress through the story. Its story is more focused and direct, although it wasn't a highlight for many players. Lords of the Fallen definitely has gameplay elements that set it apart from its inspirations, but the Souls' influence is clear. While challenging, it's somewhat easier than them, which is why some fans recommend Lords of the Fallen as an ideal choice for newcomers to try the Souls style. So what did developer Deck 13 do after making Lords of the Fallen? They continue to develop games, including an upcoming action RPG called The Surge. Like Lords of the Fallen, The Surge's gameplay is heavily inspired by Dark Souls, this time in a sci-fi setting. It puts players in a dark future where technology has turned against humankind and you must face a variety of technologically enhanced enemies. The protagonist wears a powered exosuit that can be upgraded through a deep crafting and upgrade system. Since the game is in early development, only some aspects of the Surge's story and gameplay has been revealed. However, the developers have taken Lords of the Fallen feedback into account, especially the criticism of its story and lack of innovation. The Surge is planned for PC, PS4 and Xbox One sometime in 2017. It should be worth a look, especially with the improvements Deck 13 is making on the Lords of the Fallen's formula. Shrouded Insanity is a horror game for the PC inspired by Dark Souls and Eternal Darkness. It features a subtle, Lovecraftian story hinted at through environments and NPC dialogue, challenging combat, and a sanity system. You fight with both a sword and a pistol, each of which can be used to parry attacks and make the enemy vulnerable. When you defeat enemies, they drop Vita, which you can harvest. If you die, your Vita remains where you fell unless you can retrieve it without dying again. Vitae is used to buy bullets, blessings, and rare Yeath stones, which you can exchange to increase your stats. And as you proceed through the mansion, your sanity inevitably drops, which makes more dangerous monsters spawn, but also unlocks certain areas that are otherwise inaccessible. Fans of Souls games should appreciate Shrouded Insanity's gameplay and structure, and fans of H.P. Lovecraft will find even more to enjoy. Neo was originally shown several years ago, but resurfaced in 2015 as an upcoming PS4 game due out later this year. As players watched, the samurai protagonist manage stamina to engage in intense combat against dangerous enemies, collect energy called Amita that would be dropped upon death, and level up at shrines. Neo quickly earned the nickname Samurai Souls. Its other nickname is Witcher Souls, for the protagonist's resemblance to Geralt of Rivia. Although Neo has clear Souls inspirations, it handles the style solidly and adds its own twists to the formula, such as its skill trees, guardian spirits, and a loot system. The developer revamped some of the systems based on feedback from Neo's demo, but the game's difficulty should still be intact. We'll know more about how Neo stacks up against other games on this list once it comes out, but for now, it looks like one of the most promising Souls-like games so far. We've talked about roguelike Souls, isometric Souls, sci-fi Souls, and more. But how do you feel about Mouse Souls? Or Dark Mouse, as the case may be. Dark Mouse is an action RPG with a top-down perspective in which you play a mouse, searching for the secret of a world that has been corrupted. Its combat is challenging and skill-based, and requires you to take your time and develop strategies to defeat enemies. It has campfires, or bonfires, marrow, the equivalent of souls, and a combat system highly similar to that of Dark Souls. It does have some unique features, such as the Death Echo system that grants you ghost allies when you die. But in general, this game is animal Dark Souls through and through. Dark Mouse is available for PC, and although it's lesser known, it has quickly become a favourite among Souls fans. Sultan Sanctuary is quite possibly the closest thing the world has right now to a Souls game in 2D. It is currently available for PC and PS4 with a Vita version in development. You defeat enemies, you will collect salt, which you can use either as a currency or to boost your stats. Your salt is dropped upon death, but you can retrieve it if you return to the spot where you died. Meanwhile, sanctuaries are the checkpoints where you'll level up your character. Put those gameplay elements together with Sultan Sanctuary's high difficulty, and it's easy to see the Souls inspirations on this game. However, it's also a bit of a Metroidvania, a game that uses the exploration style of classic Metroid and Castlevania games. As you explore Sultan Sanctuary's mysterious, hand-drawn world, and piece together its story through NPC comments and item descriptions, you'll earn upgrades that let you gradually unlock new areas. These elements, along with a solid combat system, made Sultan Sanctuary very well received among players. It found an identity of its own while adhering closely to the elements that make Souls games stand out in fans' minds, which is why we consider Sultan Sanctuary the #1 Souls-like game available so far. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this week's list, and if you did, leave a like. And if you want to see more lists, click here for my 10 busted Pokemon Go myths, or here for my top 10 games made by one person. And if you want to see more in the future, subscribe. I put these out every Saturday.